And finally, it's my turn to tell some stories. So let me make myself presenter. And as you can expect, if I am the presenter, I cannot follow on the chat. So please, if you can monitor the chat and ask me any question, also difficult questions. I am ready for anything. So I'm sharing my screen. Can you confirm that you can see it?
We have you here.
Awesome. So this is the TAKServer roadmap. The parrot is not dead. In fact, it's just resting. It's your impression if you believe that is dead. And today we are going to talk about different things. I'm going to tell you a story why we are here today, or why at least I am here, and then what is our plan for the next 6 months and what we have in mind for the future. That I'm super excited about it. So let me introduce myself. That is me. Since 96, I am in IT. In real world, I am a principal enterprise architect at SSNA. So we introduced my company, and I have a focus on complexity management. I speak 4 languages, a babble in some others, including English. Is not one that I will claim that I speak really. And I have an interest in IT and real world resilience. And that translates on the fact that I'm living on a off-grid farm that I designed. So a couple of years ago, we had a complete breakdown of infrastructure because of an hurricane. And I started to think about, okay, here we need to do better. And I started to research about who is going to provide us a solution for communication. And welcome to ATAK. So I discovered this thing, and when I discovered it, it was not even clear if that is released or is not released. But what was clear is that this thing is complex. What is complex? So you see, the initial idea of creating ATAK is not around ATAK, the program that we know and love, but it's around exchanging information between over 130 different DoD systems. And the first thing that they invented is the code. And code is a language, and we will elaborate more on that. However, one thing that surprised me is the fact that, while the language is the language, certain things were kind of not really addressed by the language itself. Because it's like we have English, and because we have English, we have the solution how to do the groceries. And one of the reasons that was really interesting to me is the idea of complexity. You see, if you have 130 systems connecting to each other and thousands of people on the field communicating, you have a so-called system of systems that has a complexity like non-linearity, emergence, self-organization, adaptation, feedback loops. And finally, those things are difficult to manage because you have a number of dependency, competition, relationship, and other types. Now, you may wonder yourself, okay, but we are managing that very well. We have to solve things. Yes, you do. We do, but we do at huge, huge cost. Okay, and can we do better? Maybe a couple of days ago, you heard about this guy, Will Roper, is the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Acquisition Technology and Logistics. And he came out in the news because he said, guys, we have a 6th generation fighter. And by the way, we did that in 1 year only, from the design to the prototype. So, and everyone was kind of, wow, how can we do that? So Will not only expressed the information, but has also published a couple of days ago a document called Take the Red Pill, the New Digital Acquisition Reality. And one of the things that Will is saying is that in order to do better, to manage complexity. And you understand that a fighter, a model fighter, is a very complex thing. So we need to be informed by a single source of authoritative truth. And that will allow you to do something that he defined to call dev star ops, where the star represents the string of all the automations, okay? Now, today we saw some automations expressed by DevOps, but DevOps, guys, is not anymore anything new, okay? And in DevOps, you are missing a very important part, that is before you start developing and doing operation, you have the thinking. And what is the thinking in our concept? So the thinking or concept is how you express your application, because you want to express the application once and then be able to deploy on multiple platforms. So TAKServer currently works on an Android phone, an Android tablet, a Raspberry Pi, and a cloud server. And we can do that very, very quick because we have adopted, even before this paper came out, what we can call this dev star ops approach. So because of that, I don't think that FTS is simply yet another TAK implementation. So we are plenty of TAK implementation out of there, but the way in which we are conceiving this application is the way in which, in our opinion, we can not only adapt to future requirements and technologies, but can help us to manage the complete idea that is behind the TAK infrastructure. But because it's very easy to talk on PowerPoint, let me talk about our history until now. So in February, here in Canada it's cold, and I was kind of playing with testing TAKServer, sorry, ATAK, because the TAKServer was not there. I discovered a guy that created an initial release that was a couple of lines of code that was not really working. So that is the initial release 0102. In March, we managed to understand really the fundamental part of the system. And we did that without any documentation available. And we did that by basically taking this thing apart and looking at it and transforming that in a model. And that is the thing that makes the difference. So we are specification driven. We take the specification from the interfaces, and then we transform the specification something that can be retransformed in something else. That is how we were able to get in April the fast, really working server, so version 0406. And then in April, like a April joke, we got also ATAK released. And then from April, it was a very, very fast trip. In May, we released the data package. In June, we understood already that the current implementation was weak. So we did a complete refactoring. And so in August, we came out with the fast stable version of ATAK. Again, the important thing to understand is we lost a lot of time because we had zero specification, no documentation. And frankly, we are working on free time. So it's not my primary job. And by the way, I would like to thank again Wally and SSNA to provide support for my hobby until now, and because they were kind of saying that is not our main concern. Spark Services North America is not a development company, but the reason why I'm so interested into that is because of the complexity challenge. How can we do better? That is what motivates me. So what is our secret sauce? So we use this infrastructure for the definition of what is the model. And then we have an integrated production between architecture, development, and operation. And that is the dev start ops that you have seen previously, but in action. So we are doing it, okay? Now, frankly, with all due respect, today I saw a lot of PowerPoints and very, ancient way to describe architecture. When we describe architecture in a way that architecture represents exactly not a graphical image of the application, but is the application. Because of that, we can minimize time between concept and production. And we use also a model infrastructure that support directly not only a architect like myself and a developer like Nata that is going to talk later today, but we have also the ability to produce reports to executives. So we don't need any more PowerPoint that may or may not tell the truth, but we start with the model, and we reuse the model instead of PowerPoint, instead of the code, instead of Word, instead of everything. That is the single source of truth that the Air Force is talking about. And here we have people from the Air Force, so they should listen to that. So Sparks Enterprise Architect is not a uncommon tool. We have almost 1 million users worldwide, and it's also widely used by the Department of Defense. And by the way, it's not expensive as you can think of. It's so cheap that certain people say, oh, it's cheap. Then you are cheap. So what is that we do with this model? We define first the so-called business model. And a business model can be very complex, but here we have a simple example of use cases. So, and I think everyone here knows what a use case is. It's the interaction between a user or an actor and a bubble that we call use case. And clearly you can draw that on Visio, but because we use models, we can transform those use cases into a behavioral model. So you see here, and that is what you call caught verbs. Okay, so for example, when you send a GeoChat, that is part of the so-called behavioral model. On the same time, what we have done is we have designed a domain model of COTS. And COTS, the domain model is composed by the words that you are using in your COT language. Now, we have a lot of challenges in the current implementation of COTS because we don't have a single source, at least that I am aware of this definition, okay? So as far as I know, currently the FTS definition of COTS is the most authoritative source that you can find around because it's described in a non-specific language-specific way, that is a UML model, so that we can transform it in different things. For example, from the code model, we can transform it into an application. So we have decided to go for Python as a technology, but we are not linked to the technology. We can generate the application, that technology, and we generate interfaces in different languages. Currently, we support XML, and we are aiming to support Protobuf and JSON in a very near future. And the advantage is we don't have 3 different interfaces looking completely different, okay? And if we do Protobuf, we do what I will call the real Protobuf because it's coming from the real domain model. And it's not kind of half implementation. So we try to follow certain design principles. So scalability, we want to have a single system that can be deployed on an Android phone up to a multi-stage cloud server with 20,000 users. So I saw that, the TAKServer intend to go to thousands of users. We want to do that, but we want also to be so flexible that ATAK can be, a free TAKServer can be deployed on a phone. We want the system to be simple. Now, this is a quote, please don't make it personally, but someone told me that if you have an enemy that you really hate, you give him a TAKServer to install. So TAKServer is the typical enterprise product that require a lot of technicalities to be installed. And it's good, so I'm not discussing it. But our goal as a principle is to have FTS installed with 2 lines of code. And by the way, we are doing that already. Clearly, sometimes we have people coming and say, oh, I don't know what is a computer. and I don't know where to install my ATAK on a FreeTAG server and things like that. So those people will require a little bit of education, I have to admit it. But at least we are aiming to be as simple as possible. The next thing that we are aiming for is extensibility. We want this thing to be very, very easy to extend. So we are going very soon to provide a plugin system so that you can write easily your own plugin system and to connect also to other things so that you can share whatever you want to share with whoever you want to share it. Now, security, I have to admit, currently we are not very secure. Security, as you know, is a non-functional requirement, and we have decided for now to postpone it. But now we have that on the roadmap, and in 2 minutes, I'm going to elaborate on security. Finally, performance. Right now, FTS is very performant. We can digest thousands of codes. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of having a lot of real testing. We have some funny people that like to do denial of service attacks based on codes. And because of that, we had to deactivate certain things that will not happen in a production environment. On the other side, it's also fun because we are learning a lot how to deliver performance, even if people do very stupid things. So finally, coolness. If you are not cool, why even bother? At the end of the day, we are nerds and we like to be cool, right? So we like to a Pi server that is running on a small, box and, to deploy and impress our friend. So we want to have a coolest piece of technology available to all. And this is why only if we have something cool, we will engage with more and more people, and we will have more people interested in the complete platform. So far, so good. That is my initial introduction. So let's talk about the next 6 months. We have a lot on our plate. So we just released 1.1 with a little bit of delay. And in 1.1, we are supporting now codes on the database, so we can save all the communication between FTS and clients on our database, and we can also provide this history through the CLI, aka or command line interface. And in future, we are going to provide this ability through our API. Now, the API are going to be based on REST, and we want to have something human readable. While in the meanwhile, I understand very well the codes intricacy, including the 2,500 different symbols that are expressed by letters into a code. I don't think that this is what a human want to use, okay? So something like code type ABC is nothing that we humans will like. So what we are going to do is to implement something like you can send a REST API in which you said, I saw an enemy and this enemy is a tank and that is the position. Something that is very easy to comprehend, and then FTS will translate that into codes and share with all the connected systems. In 1.3, we are going to a plugin systems, as I said, is the way in which you are going to be able to create your own plugin. So in 1.4 that we expect to be there in December, we are going to have encryption. So with encryption, you're going to have SSL encryption. And by the way, in December, we forecast to have a release of that. That don't mean that we need so much time to develop it. As you know, it's a delta between the moment in which you have a prototype that could be very fast and the moment in which we feel comfortable is to release things, especially if you think that releasing something like encryption as a sense of responsibility that we need to really ensure that is safe. So in January, we are going to release the web administration. And in February, we are going to release federation. And finally, in March, we are going to release a new version of Android. Now, while we can port everything to Android, there are certain things that we need to do before we can release it. And we believe up to 1.6 is everything that you really need. And then we can package everything nicely in Android and we can release it in Android. So here you can see some ideas and prototypes of 3 main things that we are planning. So encrypted federation, we are going not only to support federation, but we are going to support encryption in federation. And as you probably know, federation is only possible by using Protobuf. So having federation means also you need to implement Protobuf. In 1.5, we are going to have this super cool UI for web administration. We want to be cool, as I said, and that web administration is something that we forecast that you can use to impress your girlfriend, or maybe not, because she don't care. And finally, in 1.7, we are going to have FTS on Android. And that means you are going to be able to have an APK that you install on your phone, and then your phone suddenly is a TAKServer, or it's TAKServer capable. And by the way, what you look at right now is a prototype that we are running, and it works, only don't support federation, don't also support encryption, and so on. So if you don't have any question in regard to the current roadmap, I will go for the long-term roadmap. And I don't have the time to go through the questions. So if anyone of the moderators can help me out with questions, if any, on the current roadmap, please go on.
Currently, there's no questions, Corvo.
Okay. I see here a question from Rolf. Did you generate XSD from the code XML that ATAK, WinTAK user? No, what we have done is we use the XML to create a UML, and then we generate the XSD from the UML, because the current XML definition is message depending, is not providing a single source of everything, and our model provide that. Any plan for containers from Nick? Yes, we do have containers already. We don't maintain the current container implementation, but if you look on GitHub, we have containers, and I have now linked that, so README. So if you're interested in container, you can go there. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the long-term roadmap. Until now, we are playing kind of catch up with the original core functionalities that are offered by TAKServer. And that begs the question, okay, why you are trying to replicate everything? Because we believe that clearly, in order to use this thing, you need to have a certain, a level of support. But in the long term, what we would like to do is to provide unique capabilities. As an example, enhanced federation, AI augmented situational awareness, deployment over the air, IoT support, and TAK3 protocol support. Now, while the rest of the roadmap, what I show here, for everything here, we know exactly how to do that. We have initial prototypes, so you can trust that between now and next year, we are going to deliver all of that. I will be very clear that for the things that are here, we are going in the visionary, dimension. We know how to do that, but I will not claim that we have a prototype in our pocket. So full disclosure here. But we believe that those things are really necessary in order to provide a next generation TAKServer. So let's talk about enhanced federation. This is easy. This we know exactly how to do. And I was surprised that that is currently not part of the federation. And maybe that is an invitation to the TAKServer developer to think about it. Because you see, federation is something that you will expect can connect, different codes that are on different servers. But let's talk about a small city deployment scenario. So we have the police, we have the firefighter, and we have emergency medical responder, and they want to collaborate together. But that don't mean that necessarily they want to exchange all the types of code. So we know that there are thousands of different types of messages that you can exchange. So we want to be able to restrict special codes to special servers or users inside the servers. And by the way, we are going to do the same internally because we are going to support groups internally and we are going to restrict the codes by group. For example, we know that one very powerful functionality is emergency. So what about all those servers are connected together, but they only exchange emergency codes with the CTFTS, and the CTFTS is going to share with all the rest. So that is a very easy example. We have many more complex examples in mind. That is one of the things that we believe is going to enhance the real awareness of the situation. And talking about situational awareness, so currently the TAK infrastructure support what is defined at B level 1, in which data and element of the environment are shared with the team, okay? But we don't have any kind of level 2 or level 3. So level 2 is what is the current situation saying? It's not because I have dots on the map that I know what is going on. Clearly, we humans, we are able to look at the map, but the question is, do you have someone looking at the map all the time? Probably not. After a while, you can be bored. You can go, even if it's your mission, you go, you take a coffee, and then it's too late. So in FTS 2, we plan to start understanding certain things. And that is a very, very simple example. So let's assume that we have a law enforcement officer that is out and has been called for a crime situation, and then he's not changing position for 5 minutes. Can we assume that probably he's down? And can we call a reinforcement and an ambulance or inform someone else that we have the situation? That would be an example of comprehension. Even more interesting is forecasting of future states and event. And here we go really to the sci-fi idea, but we are not anymore so far in doing that by using artificial intelligence, and that I prefer to call machine learning. So with machine learning, we can forecast situations. So we can say that, for example, if we have 20 dots of bad guys coming in our direction as a circle, and we have only 5 good guys that are being encircled, the next probable event is those guys, they are going to be in trouble, okay? So we can forecast that even before that happens. So we believe that to evolve situational awareness to level 2 and 3, we need to go from perception to comprehension and projection. Another thing is in the sense of simplicity. Even if we try to simplify as much as possible, the ATAK infrastructure is complex. Okay, so you need to have the right version of the software, the right version of the plugins. Probably you want also to configure several maps and layers and stuff, and you want to connect to the proper servers with the proper user. Can we do better that, having users in need to get the training? Think about, we have something like a QR code, and all a user need to do is to scan the QR code, and then he will get everything he needs. Not only the connection to the proper server and federated server, but also the ATAK client, including everything that should be inside for the specific category of user. So another thing that we are thinking about is the Internet of the Things. So as you know, right now, a lot of information, at least for regular users, are coming because we need to click on a map and to show that we have a certain information. But we know that in future we are going to have more and more sources of codes. So, and we are going to have video cameras, but I think also, for example, for regular user, what about dry wave alarms? What about sound sensors? All of that need not only to be injected into the system, but need also some kind of awareness of the interpretation of that. Now, that is part of the AI stuff, but we can also create something like agent frameworks, and the agents will be in charge of evaluating and reacting to certain inputs that are not anymore necessarily coming from human users, but are coming from machines. And those machines can be as simple as sensors, but could be also actuators, and they can have a part of intelligence. So we need to be able to, have agents to evaluate this information. We need to expose APIs, but we need also to be able to integrate with existing public APIs. For example, a very interesting example of public API for the Internet of the Things is the Thing Network that allow you easily to integrate with a variety of devices. Finally, let me spend some words on Protobuf. I am very passionate about that. You see, when you generate Protobuf from a model, you will generate a Protobuf that is exactly mirroring the model, okay? This is a piece of Protobuf that we have generated from the UML model. And you will see that, for example, inside detail, we have the complete description of the emergency and the message point and the message event. We even have the specification for that. That may or may not be a good idea, but in this case, we have decided to generate that to give you a hint of what is possible. The current implementation of Protobuf that is called version 1 is only partially taking advantages of the Protobuf as a protocol. And later NATA GOS 108 is going to elaborate on that. We are thinking about creating the stack protocol version 3 that will take full advantage of the Protobuf, solving problems like the one that Paul described previously, in order to have a better, smaller, faster, and future-proof system of messaging. So this is my conclusion. FTS is a demonstration on how to apply enterprise architecture concept to the management of a common language and how to translate it into a technological solution. So because it's a specification-based system, FTS can be developed very faster, is easier to develop, is more robust and flexible, and we can easily integrate with third parties. So in future versions, with your support, we hope to provide capabilities that are not yet available to the TAK family. And maybe that could be a playground to show what is possible outside of the government and military thinking, so that we can really express what are the limits of the technology today. And clearly, this is only possible because you as a community, you are supporting all of that. So I would like to thank again the whole community, starting with Ralph and Josh and Jay. I don't know if Jay is still awake because it's on the other side of the world. Thank you guys. Thank you for everything. Only because of you is possible to do what we have done until now. So that is the end of my presentation. Is any question coming up in the chat here or in Discord?
I have not seen any come up in Discord yet, and no more there in GoToMeeting yet.
Okay, you are all asleep. Fantastic.
Actually, I saw
quick
one.
comment here. This is
I saw a question on Discord from Atomic Boolean.
How have you fallen asleep yet? Good question. Okay, so any question that I can answer apart why we are not asleep yet?
one quick note here. This is Nate Soul talking. I think it would be great if you and I have a conversation offline, because I think there's a few things that we've been putting together lately that might you might be able to use in some of the future looking stuff that you're talking about. There's a next version of the TAK Federation capability that's just began development now that tries to get at some of the concepts that you were talking about, more control over not just who you can talk to, but what you're sending, and if you should transform it on the way. And then there's a prototype, an R&D prototype that came out just recently that we call TAK-ML, which is a machine learning platform in ATAK and in TAKServer, and it might be a good foundation to build some of the kind of semantic reasoning capabilities that you were just talking about. There's also a QR code mechanism that can be used. Again, this is an R&D prototype that a company called Paraton developed that can be used to configure ATAK, and so that might be another nice starting point for some of the broader configuration stuff you're talking about. And finally, there's as part of TAK-ML, there's a sensor framework that is intended to make it easy to hook into IoT and those kind of technologies, and so might be another good starting point for some of the things you're thinking.
Thank you. Clearly, I will not claim that any of what I'm proposing is completely new, and we will take advantage of anything that is available. I'm talking about.
And I think they're all great concepts, and just wanted to make sure you were aware of those because they might give you a good starting point.
Thank you, and I really welcome to a follow-up conversations with all of you. So here I have someone say, I tried to install FTS on Python for Windows, but I haven't been able to get it working. I'm guessing this is not possible and I need Linux. Jeremy, in fact, we have a ton of installation of Windows. On the other side, if you are a masochist and you want to continue to use Windows for that, you'll be prepared for pain. And that has nothing to do with FTS, but you can talk to Bill Gates for that. And
hey, Corvo, I'd just like to observe that Nate just dropped 5 or so important improvements to the TAK community that completely didn't get talked about today that people should be interested in for what I hope is the next one of these in 6 months. Over.
Okay, let's discuss further about that offline. So what will be the primary use of FTS on Android? It is just more convenient portable server, or will be a benefit having a large number of mobile FTS instances? Bobby is asking that. I will provide an answer from the civilian point of view, but then I would like, if it's possible, Ralph to elaborate on that shortly, because Ralph is the original pusher for the idea of having an Android server. But think about the ability to create a super federation of FTS servers that, simply create a super mesh because they are installed on phones. Okay, everyone has a phone, and other that your Windows computer, a Android phone is a Unix machine, and it's becoming more and more powerful. And beside that, we have even phones that we don't use anymore. So it's the cheapest way, apart a Raspberry Pi, to run a server. They consume very little energy. They are widely available. They are super cheap, and you can have a lot of them and simply drop if you don't need them anymore. But Ralph, you want to elaborate what would be the usage in the DoD of an Android phone? Ralph Collor, you want to say something?
I'm talking, you guys just aren't hearing me.
Yeah.
So several years ago, AFRL built what we call a PiTags, just a Raspberry Pi type of thing, ruggedized and with a TAKServer on it. And we built a few of these so people could go test with it, and it was a big hit. And then we built a few more, and it was a big hit. And every time people want them, and there's more and more demand for these things, we have to build them, and there's no real mechanism for the government to charge for them. So we just take it out of high. And so we're paying, it's costing us, you know, if we have to spend $50,000 to build these things, which are expensive because they all have to be custom built, it's a waste. It's not a good use of our money or anybody else's. So if instead we had a thing that fit on a phone, we could just say, hey guys, go get this software and put it on the phone. And then you could do your low-end, low-scale TAK practice things in the field, and you wouldn't have to bother us at all. And that's a great benefit to the government, because it put, just like Charlie doesn't scale, we don't scale well either. But if we just put this software in the Play Store, then we don't have to scale, and everybody can do what they want. Over.
Thank you. And I'm noticing that I am out of time. Sorry, no one has moderated me.